Hello everybody, Christopher Beast here. In today's video we're going to be covering which of the loot POIs is the best. Now by loot POIs I do not mean named locations, I mean vault, cache, time safe, and the lock container. That's all I mean. There are other things that could be considered loot POIs, but I'm not considering those loot POIs in this video. I may make in the future a separate video on other things, I may not. But for today, we're focusing on loot POIs. Let's get right into this. First loot-based POI I want to get into is the Vault. The Vault is the most classic of the four and came out first. It's been in the game ever since, I think, 0.7 or 0.8. And it's something that we all know and love. The Vault has a couple of pros and a couple of cons, so let's get into them. The first thing is the pros. It has a lot of loot that's, pretty decent. It's pretty easy to access. All you gotta do is break up some wood and enter it. It's pretty easy to defend because most of the time, Vault is going to be located in a strategically advantaged position for you to hold, using the wood and your surroundings to basically just hold the line until the Vault's done unlocking. And, it's classic. We all know how it works. It's very simple. We all have the spawns of, some of us have Vault spawns memorized and other stuff. It's also, I have to give it this pro. It's marked on the map. This is going to be a pro most of these loot-based POIs have, but it's something the Vault also has. Cons. It takes a while to open. It's one of the few out of the four that you can't really do instantly. You're going to have to wait. There's a forced mandatory wait with safe. Another con, you're told to the whole map that you just opened this thing. And you now have to wait a decent amount of time while it opens, and everybody knows you came here, and they're all going to rush towards you. Some people like this, but if you're a looter, that is a decently large con. So, moving on to the next thing, time safe. Time safe loses the pros of it's well defended and it's, well known, gains the con of you have to find tiny buttons that are really hard to find, which means you have to sprint around. Sprinting around looking for buttons is a pretty good way to get yourself shot and killed. The next con is that whenever you hit the buttons, the entire map knows that you just hit a button. And whenever you open the time safe, the entire map now knows you opened a time safe. The pro, though, is that the loot and time safe is generally speaking, not always, generally speaking, better than regular safe. Next, we have the lock container. The lock container is the only one of the four that, only one of the two out of the four that doesn't broadcast to the whole map that you're here unless you shoot the little padlocks. If you just open the padlocks as well, you can open this thing completely silently without alerting anyone on the map where you are. It's also marked on the map, and on top of all that, it has time-safe level loot. The cons, though. These padlocks are pretty hard to open, especially the one on the top, because you're completely out in the open while you're doing this. It's not like the blue containers where normally you're inside of a building. These things are always outside. So your chance of getting shot in the head is pretty high, especially with the one on the top. Also, getting on top to open the last one is hard. Many times you're going to have to find a stupid rock and do some parkour. And the final con is if you walk inside the thing and someone's camping you, you're guaranteed dead. Time safe and safe, if you start getting shot at, you can normally find some local cover if you're fast enough. This, it's not going to matter because you're basically funneling all of their shots down a corridor that there's no cover in. Finally, the last of these loot-based POIs is the cache. The cache isn't really considered by a lot of people to be a loot-based POI, but I'm putting it in this video because I think it's an interesting one. The cache has some pretty big downsides. It's not marked on the map. You have to find it using the stupid photos. The loot is inconsistent. It isn't really always very good. It isn't always very bad. I mean, sometimes you'll get M1911 ammo by the stockades. On other times, you'll get an H-bar. The other con is that when you're looting this thing, you're again not going to be behind any cover. It's just like with the locked container, you're just going to be standing out in the open. However, the pro is, of course, this isn't marked on the map, so if you're a low-profile player who really doesn't want to get into any massive firefights, the cache is kind of the way to go. So, I'm going to rank all 4 of them, based off which ones I think is worst to best. The worst of the 4, in my opinion, is cache. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree on that because, as I said before, it is the best one for a low-profile player. But cache has 2 notable issues that make even it for, being good for low-profile players still really bad for low-profile players. 1, first issue is physically finding the cache in time. Let's say you get the photo and you know where all the photos are, which a lot of people don't. Getting to the photo is not hard, I'm going to give you that. But getting there first is where the issue comes. If you find the photo, let's say, halfway through the match, or the third, the fourth half of the match, or quarters of the match, there's a very high chance someone's already gotten cache before you, and you're going to show up to an empty cache. Or you show up to someone camping cache, and then you die. But those are minor issues compared to, the biggest issue of cache is the chance of you just hitting cache and someone just walking by and shooting you while you're looting it is surprisingly higher than I thought. When I was trying to film footage for this video of me looting cache, every time I physically made it to the cache, I would die. Because I'd be like, oh yeah, I finally found it. I start opening it and then I get head tapped from 362 meters by an H-bar sitting up in the mountains. So, my conclusion is that while cache is okay if you want to be low profile, it takes way too long to find, it isn't marked on the map, so it's not like it's a very high traffic zone, its loot is too inconsistent for it to be reliable, its photos are normally very not descriptive, and especially on maps like Diverg and Victorson, the entire map looks the same. You can't just send me a photo of snow and expect me to know where it is. I don't know, maybe I just have a personal bias against caches. Number 3, time safe. Time safe is definitively worse than the other 2 options for a couple of reasons. 1, the whole pro of, safe is easily defendable goes out the window when you have to sprint around the area looking for tiny buttons. And it's not like the buttons are hard to find. I'm not going to say that. But let's say there's 2 buttons right next to each other. As long as those 2 buttons are outside of the safe room, then a large amount of your cover is gone, and you now have to move around into the open a lot more than you do with any of the other one of these. And I know someone's going to go, well, what about a locked container? But at least a locked container doesn't let the entire map know you're hitting the buttons. Let's say this. I have an H-bar. I find a button. I sit in front of it. I wait for the stupid beep. I fire. They're dead. I don't even have to see them. I don't even have to be looking at my controller. The fact that exists, for me, makes time safe worse. Time safe, theoretically, is one of the best. I could see someone argue it is number 1, because between these top 3, I think it's very close. But the fact that the entire map knows where you are, and you have to move around, combined, does not help time safe. And also, the buttons are always in areas with no cover, so that's got to be added to the list as well. After time safe, Barred House, original Vault. Vault is really good, except welcome back to another episode of I like to let the entire map know where I am. Vault's loot isn't good enough anymore to justify letting the entire map know where you are. Its combat lanes are decent most of the time, but because the player base has, learned how to play with safe, most players know how to counter every single safe spawn. At least if you're a veteran player, like myself or most other people from Seasons 2, 0.8, and other massive milestones where we had a lot of new players. I would argue there are still some safes that are bulletproof. I mean, we're talking Northern Trog safe spawn, where you have that concrete, it's inside the concrete bunker. You're not really going to be able to push that easily. And a lot of there's other examples of this, I'm sure, but with the increasing interesting spawns on Anakeen, Sawmill, and really Fisk and Vicky as well, so the safe spawns on those maps are just not really good. And when you look at the time safe and locked crate comparisons, it's really not comparable, because locked safe just has better, Time Safe just has better spawns, generally speaking. I mean, I know someone's going to go in the comments and go, how dare you put Classical Safe in number 2? It's the best one. But as I said, the top 3 are really close. I just really think some elements of the lock crate put it above the other 2. And let's get into those elements. 1, you can do this thing completely silent, and it's marked on the map. I earlier said that cache is very good for the person who's low profile. I agree. Very, very much. I agree with myself. But I don't want to spend 30 to 45% of my match looting stupid boxes, looking for a yellow photo, pulling up at it, taking forever to find the specific piece of snow the map wants me to find, finding it, and then it's already been looted. At least with the lock crate, I see it on the map, I can sprint there in the first 10 seconds, see if it's open or not easily, and if it's not open, I already know the threat I'm facing. If someone else comes after me, I'm going to have some damage. But lock crates loot is pretty consistent. Pretty consistently good. Anything from H-bars to ZAM72s to ADRs are going to be spawning in this thing, while cache is out here with the M1911, IZHs, VZ52s, VZ58s, and hundreds of fucking .45 ACP. Maybe I'm a little biased. I'll agree. Sometimes I get a little biased in these videos. But, in my opinion, nothing really beats the new lock container. I want to hear everyone else's opinions in the comments below, and I will apologize that this video is a little bit less functional than others. I've been really busy lately working with a couple of projects, a couple of which you will actually see coming out this week on this channel. But I hope you all can bear with me, and appreciate you all, and see you all next time.